All right, Wes Durham. Let, let's start with Carolina and NC State. Not so much about what we saw this past weekend, although that will play into it. And I think that these two programs are coming at this game not only from different places. State was kind of left by the side of the road a little bit more than a month ago, right? And Carolina going into the Virginia game, Carolina's looking at, man, we win this. We beat Georgia Tech. College football playoff rankings come out, and then it just completely went sideways. But I also look at State as they just seem like a relaxed, a team that has just had fun, including the coaching staff. And I think this has been work. It's the difference between fun and work between State and Carolina. Maybe I have too much time in my hands, but that's the way it looks to me.
No, I don't think you're too far off. I think big picture, I think this is one of Dave Doran's best jobs in Raleigh, period. End of sentence. You give the landscape change he's been through, not just from an injury perspective, but the whole quarterback shuffle, if you will. And the fact that they're on the verge of, a ninth win, right? It's a remarkable statement to not only the program he's built, but this particular edition of it. I think you're right about Carolina. I think Carolina goes to play Virginia. All of a sudden, as my wife likes to say from time to time, the knives and forks are dancing and everybody's all happy. And then all of a sudden you lose to Virginia, and guess what? You get caught in a trap a week later in Atlanta. It continues to be a house of horrors. You come back and beat Campbell, which you should. And then, you go the highs and lows and the roller coaster of a ball game against Duke, only to go to Clemson, and all of a sudden, for the first time, Amari Hampton can't hold the football.
Right.
So now, all of a sudden, all the aspirations and all the things Carolina had hoped for are hinging in some respect, Adam, on 60 Minutes in Raleigh on Saturday night. NC State, meanwhile, has the advantage of winning the last couple of these, right? And playing, I don't want to say they're playing with house money, because this is still State Carolina.
Right.
And one of the goals that, from a production side, that we have on Saturday night is we're trying to introduce State Carolina to not just the ACC Network, but we're trying to introduce State Carolina to the rest of the country. Because I think one of the responsibilities, fiduciary responsibilities we have on the ACC Network is people outside the ACC footprint who may or may not have money on the game, or may or may not just want to see talented players play. But we have to show people State Carolina has been a thing, and damn it, it's been a thing for a long time. And a lot of people nationally don't recognize it. But I do believe your statement at the front of this is very true. They are coming at it with different vibes. They're coming at it with different measures, but the intention at the end of Saturday night is still the same. One guy wants to take the other guy out in the middle of the street and whip him. Who will that be? We'll find out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys who I think are going to be playing on Sunday out there. Clearly, Carolina's quarterback, and we all know that Tez Walker is a Sunday player.
He is.
I think Peyton Wilson is going. Like, the only thing holding Peyton Wilson back from maybe even being a day 2 pick is he's older and he's got an injury history.
Tim Hasselbeck and I had that conversation during the Miami game. Tim has done a marvelous job cataloging with several people at the NFL level about Peyton Wilson, and you're exactly right. The only check mark in the wrong box for Peyton Wilson right now is the health standard that he has had during his Wolfpack career. Elsewise, the NFL is excited to see what Peyton Wilson can do. There's no question.
I mean, what if he's healthy when he gets to the combine? He's going to put up stupid numbers at the combine.
Correct.
That if he were a redshirt sophomore, right, and 21 years old, that he would probably have him in the first round.
That's right.
But that's not the case. He's older, and he's got shoulder injuries and some other things, in his past. But still, the guy has had a tremendous, tremendous year. My over-under on how many times the Russell Wilson 2-yard Hail Mary or the Gio Bernard punt return are shown.
Russell Wilson would be short odds, real short. But the Gio Bernard punt return, that's probably house money there. That's going to be the easiest one of the night. But I'll also tell you this too. we are digging into the archives of the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network and other ventures to find Damon Hartman's field goal too.
Okay.
And
All
we want
right.
Damon Hartman's field goal. Look, there have been so many
We
moments. I
don't have
mean,
T.A. McClendon because it
no,
wasn't on TV.
we have a still photo.
Oh, it's a miss.
I mean, look,
It's
let me tell
crazy.
you, I got that. I mean, we're working. Like, look, Alex Farmartino, who you know was Raycom,
All right.
and now with us on our Saturday night package, he and I are like, really, we're going to get State Carolina. We've got a chance to show people kind of what this is, and I think I got to be honest with you, I take that responsibility personal. I mean, I do. I think it's one of those things that I'm fortunate to have grown up in this, and my timeline's already exploded since I tweeted out early Sunday morning that we're doing the
Yes.
game. I've got friends, apparently all sorts of friends, who called my bloodline into account right away, which was interesting. But nonetheless, I mean, I want to tell the story. I want to chronicle the game. I've had the basketball version of this, Adam,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, a half dozen times on television, and I'm excited to do the football version of it. I really am, because I think the football version of it has been terrific for a long, long time, and it gets lost in the shuffle. And I'll go along with something I saw Mark Armstrong tweet from earlier today. I can't believe this game doesn't have a trophy. Cannot
Yeah.
believe this game does not have something about it. But there again,
We built a week of radio on that particular topic about 10 years ago, and
yeah,
we came up with the John Edwards brass spittoon that would actually go to the loser, not the winner of the trophy. And the
that's what you
object was
did,
to
huh?
not have it. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. You know how we
yeah,
work. It goes to the loser because you don't want that. John Edwards is a lifelong Carolina fan, but went to State, if I'm not mistaken.
that's correct.
So,
Yes,
yeah, I mean, that's the way we work.
there we go.
Wes Durham is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Real quick about more so about the Carolina game at Clemson, because
Okay,
they got the least out of that game by a mile. Should have been up no worse than 17-0, and Mac Brown makes a good point. That you probably should have 3 touchdowns, not 1 in the first quarter.
absolutely.
Should have been 21-0. And maybe it's a completely different thing. But then the old Carolina defense, where we can't tackle, just allergic to getting guys on the ground, happened. And
Right.
maybe that would have happened anyway. And maybe that was always going to be that kind of a game. But I thought we saw a lot of the bad habits of UNC. And there was still so much for them to play for, because if Louisville doesn't win, then Carolina still has an outside shot at getting
Right.
to the championship game.
Yeah, and you know what, the part that you're talking about early in the game. In fact, when they don't cash in the early chances at them, for me, that's kind of where this thing comes and
Mm-hmm.
goes, right? I mean, when Hampton fumbles the ball, they don't get a touchdown. The roughing the passer call, if you will, that would have gotten Clemson off the field. Those little kind of increments in the ball game decide the game before you get to the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
And I think Carolina has fallen victim to that before. Now, the defensive structure itself, when Will Shipley gets cranked up and Phil Maffa gets cranked up, they take pressure off Cade Klubnik, and Clemson can play a little freer
Mm-hmm.
offensively, and they're not as bound up as they've been this year, where the run game gets stymied like Miami, and all of a sudden Klubnik's got to start airing it out, or feels like
Yeah.
he's got to make plays on his own. So Carolina's going to have to adjust to, guess what? A quarterback who can make plays on his own,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think Carolina's statement for Saturday now has to be, not only how do we stop NC State, but how do we stop Brennan Armstrong? And you've almost got to go back and look at Armstrong's numbers against Carolina when he was at Virginia, really under Bronco Mendenhall, to accept kind of where they are. And I think it's going to be a fascinating study. I really do. Gene Chizik and Charlton Warren and Tommy Thigpen, they got their work cut out for them this week, because NC State's got a vibe offensively right now that I'm not sure they've had all year long. And oh, by the way, they wired up a pretty good defense on Saturday in Blacksburg in their joint,
Mm-hmm.
which says a lot about. And by the way, I think Concepcion's been terrific for them,
Yep.
and he's kind of playing the Billy Kemp or whatever role, Keaton Thompson / Billy Kemp, that Robert and I had at
Yeah.
Virginia. And I'm beginning to believe now that Carolina will have to almost match NC State in certain segments on Saturday night from an offensive perspective now. And Hampton has been sensational. I mean,
Tremendous.
he's tied with Ollie Gordon in rush yards, and I think he's going to be a huge piece of what Carolina does Saturday night as well.
We'll see. It's been difficult to run the ball effectively against the Wolfpack. I think
question.
If State can like, I think a lot of people are expecting points. I'm not. I'm expecting a game where mid-20s.
Wow.
I think mid-20s will be enough. I think if you can get to 27.
First to 27 wins.
Yeah, I'll say 27 points.
Well, Hasselbeck's going to get to draw all night on the telestrator, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, first of all, I realize I'm biased, but I think you guys are really good together. I think you are really,
We've
really.
had fun.
I think you guys are really good together.